Presented by BTB Moving. We're setting up shop, so pop open the cooler, pull up a seat.
Who wants to have some fun?
Let's talk some pigskin.
Joey's just interested in giving me another heartbreak, another heart attack, another day where I'm considering jumping off my balcony. He's wearing the grass is damn green in Eugene shirt again. Joey, you did not learn.
I don't care about your health, man.
Joey just might as well jump off the balcony.
Might as well.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Ah, boy. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to the Score Sports Den. Here on this January 24th, it's another edition of the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving. Along with Nate Jarecki, I'm Joey Keeran. Happy to have you with us here on today's program where we have plenty in store for you. Hopefully your Friday is going well and you are excited about what is to come here on today and the weekend. We got NFL Conference Championship games coming up this weekend. We've got... well, I guess that's it. I was thinking about this. This is like the first Saturday without football in a really long time.
Yeah, no, typically you have like the Saturday football, whether it be college football or the NFL playoffs, and I was actually thinking about that myself. I was like, now it's kind of getting time to like lock into college basketball because that's like what's going to dominate Saturdays from now on.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about tomorrow, like I don't have anything to do tomorrow. Like, what am I going to do tomorrow? I was like, I guess I can watch college basketball. Because I know that they've been doing college game day. At least last weekend they did college game day for college basketball. But I haven't necessarily been in the full like college basketball mind. I don't know about you, but it always feels like about right after the national championship game, that's when I start to lock into college basketball. Don't get me wrong. Like I've been keeping an eye on the Ducks and watching the Ducks basketball team this season. Really excited about what Oregon's doing this year. It feels like they're more competitive this year than they've been in the past 5 years. But overall, like the grand scheme of college basketball, I haven't necessarily been keeping the eye on it.
Well, I guess now's the time.
Now's the time.
But we do have plenty of football discussions to get to here on today's program. So don't you worry. This tailgate party will include some football conversation. Obviously, the NFL playoffs not done yet. We will find out who's going to be playing in Super Bowl 59 coming up on Sunday with down to 2 games left to go before the big game coming up February 9th. Pro Bowl games are right around the corner. I've got some I've shared plenty of thoughts through the years about all-star festivities here on the Score, and but it's interesting. I found out this week the NBA is actually changing up their all-star format, and it has me kind of wondering, like, what is the future of all-star festivities? And so we'll discuss that coming up here later on in the program as well. Of course, we just wrapped up the college football season, so we should reflect on that. Ohio State wins a national championship over Notre Dame. We will look back on that. Some off-season college football thoughts about the college football playoff, about just kind of what's going to happen here as college football now gears up for next season. We're around like 218 days away, or maybe it's a little more than that. It might be like 220 days away from the college football season kicking off once again, so start the countdown now. So we've got a ton to get to here on today's program. You can join us by giving us a call at 541-673-5551. Let us know your thoughts by calling into the studio here. And again, that number, 541-673-5551. You can also find us on our YouTube channel. Search 1490 The Score on YouTube. You'll find the live video stream going on there. You can hit us up in the comments section and let us know what you think about today's topics. And we would be more than happy to share your thoughts from the comment section here on the show with us today. So a lot to get to here on the program, but I don't really want to waste any time because I know this first topic is going to... got the... YouTube stream feeding back to us there. All right, there we go. I know this first topic is going to have we've said it before, you give sports broadcasters an opportunity to talk, and they're going to fill the time, and I got a good feeling that this first topic is going to have the opportunity to fill a lot of time. So let's get to it. We start with, the way that the tailgate party always starts, cracking a cold one.
Nothing gets a tailgate party going like a nice cold beverage. So let's crack one open and kick off today's show with our top story.
Some breaking news. Congrats to Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll has been named the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. This seems like the worst-kept secret in football over the last few days. Our circles were telling us that. The internet was saying that Pete Carroll had a chance. Michael Lombardi, who I believe was speaking to Tom Brady throughout this entire process. Tom Brady leading the charge on the interviews of the head coach and the GM. GM spy tech from Tampa. When Tom was down there, got to know each other well. Pete Carroll is a guy that gives them immediate legitimacy. Now, he's 73 years old. It was a 3-year deal with a 4th-year team option. He'd be 76 at the time, 77 at the time. Anybody that's ever been around Pete Carroll, though, says, this guy's like a 40-year-old, man. This guy's like a 30-year-old. His energy is off the charts. I think Pete Carroll knows exactly what to do. He's won a college national championship. He's won a Super Bowl championship. This guy knows ball, and also, he can spin it.
He's got a gun.
There's videos of him in his 70s working with the scout team, throwing balls, no-look throws. His energy is contagious. The way he goes about doing his thing, we all recognize and understand. He's going to bring a positivity, a competitive mindset, and hopefully the Raiders back into relevancy, which is all anybody could hope for in the NFL, because when the Raiders are good, the NFL is better.
That was, of course, Pat McAfee on ESPN on the Pat McAfee Show. I think that last part at least would make Knight Jarecki somewhat happy. When the Raiders are good, the NFL is better. I think that line right there has to make you happy.
So do you agree?
That the NFL is better if the Raiders are better?
Yes.
I think when you have your kind of traditional blue blood programs that are at least in the conversation are relevant, I think that makes your leagues better.
So you're saying that the Raiders are a traditional blue blood?
Well, I mean, yeah, they were. You don't think of the Autumn Winds and the NFL films without thinking of John Madden, the Raiders, all of that kind of stuff. Now, have they been relevant anytime recently? No. So, yeah, I mean, they are a program that is in desperate need of some work. But, yeah, I mean,
you could say that we're like the Nebraska football.
They're NFL. One of those programs that definitely is a program that when you think of the NFL, that's one of kind of like those grassroots teams, the base teams that you would think of when you think of the NFL. So, yeah, I totally think so.
100%. I think the big thing, too, is Raider Nation, right? They're everywhere. And I think the Raider Nation is probably ecstatic right now, getting a coach like Pete Carroll, getting a Super Bowl champion type of coach.
Okay, so Raider Nation is ecstatic. We're not worried about Raider Nation. What about Knight Jarecki?
My current thought process on this is that the dude's going to be 74. This is a good hire if he hires a young offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, for that matter, to take over for the team in 2 to 3 years. The thing is that, he might have a lot of energy, and I don't know what Pete Carroll's like at age 73 right now. He's going to be 74 by the time the season starts. But what I do know is that once you kind of get to the mid-70s, it rapidly happens how fast you just decline with age, right?
I would say, obviously showed a lot of spirit and energy as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He had a year off.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
That time down, did he stay focused? Did he stay engaged?
Yeah.
Did he stay, did he spend more time on the couch just hanging out and doing
the other
not
thing,
much?
too, is that, with a lot of older folks in the mid-70s, you take one fall, and it could hurt you for the rest of your life, right? And so that's a little concerning that, he could, be at practice, trip over some sort of equipment, break his hip, and then all of a sudden he's, in a wheelchair on the sideline or in the booth upstairs. So that definitely, concerns me. He's not, the biggest guy. He's not like a Belichick where he's, a unit. He's definitely a little bit more of a fragile guy. Don't get me wrong. He was moving around, at least with the Seahawks, but I don't know what he's done in the last year. Is he running every day? That's the big question for me. I think that this is a hire that is a safe hire in the terms of just trying to get the fan base around a coach that has won a Super Bowl. You know what you're getting with Pete Carroll. You get a coach that the players love playing for. You get a successful coach, although he wasn't successful his last 3 years. He made one playoff appearance in his final 3 years, 9-8, 9-8, 7-10. Those aren't necessarily the most impressive numbers compared to a majority of his career. He definitely declined towards the last 3 years of his career in Seattle, but it's a safe hire because you know what you're getting. It's not like you're taking a risk on a Ben Johnson and don't know if Ben Johnson has what it takes to be a head coach. Pete Carroll has what it takes to be a head coach. He's proven it. He's won a college national championship. He's won an NFL national championship. So you know what you're getting with Pete Carroll. The question is, can he sustain it at his age? And I think that's kind of a little concerning, but you know, I'm happy about it. Like, in terms of the available options, yeah, like, I like the hire in comparison, because I just, like, I wasn't sold on Liam Cohen. I wasn't sold. Like, I was kind of like, if we get Ben Johnson, that's probably the best hire that we can make, because everybody's talking about Ben Johnson. But even after, like, Ben Johnson got hired in Chicago, I don't know if he was going to be the right guy for the Raiders at that point. So, like, I mean, still to me, I think Antonio Pierce should be the coach. Like, I don't think he got a fair shake of things. Like, he got Aiden O'Connell and, you know, Gardner Minshew for a year. And who knows? Honestly, actually, one thing that I will say is that, like, there's a lot of talk now. It's like, well, are the Raiders going to bring in Russell Wilson? Are they going to go trade for Geno Smith? Like, what's going to happen with the Raiders? And for me, it's like, dude, like, I would rather have Aiden O'Connell start for an entire season. Like, if you put Aiden O'Connell's numbers compared to C.J. Stroud's numbers across 16 games, like a full, because Aiden O'Connell played like 10 games last year and 7 games this year. So if you combine the stats from last year and this year for like one full season, they are pretty much about the same numbers that C.J. Stroud this season in one full NFL season. And we're talking about C.J. Stroud being one of the top young quarterbacks in the league. Why don't we talk about Aiden O'Connell in the same sense? So, you know, to me, like, you don't have to go out and make a drastic move, sign a Russell Wilson. We already saw what happened signing a Gardner Minshew. I think getting Russell Wilson's probably about the same thing as getting Gardner Minshew. You know, maybe he has a little bit more NFL success, but I think at the current state of where Russell Wilson's at, he's probably around the same level as Gardner Minshew. And I don't think you got to waste a draft pick unless it's like a 7th or 6th round pick for Geno Smith. And I don't know if the Seahawks are making that trade.
Go Ducks with an apostrophe on YouTube. Dylan Gabriel to the Raiders.
Yeah,
I mean, the Russell Wilson addition doesn't excite me. I think I'm with you there that it doesn't necessarily. I mean, Russell Wilson in a dome. You know, getting to play more games in a dome, fair weather, and maybe better conditions instead of having to play in Philadelphia or in rainy Seattle.
You mean Pittsburgh?
Yeah, what did I say?
Philadelphia.
Sorry, Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, like...
maybe.
But he also played in Denver. Like, I get it. It's a dome, but like...
But you also have to plan for the
cooked.
future. You have to look forward. And that's my biggest thing about Pete Carroll is, you know, it's a 4-year deal with that last year being a team option.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I mean, NFL coaches don't stick around long, especially if they're in Raiders silver and black. They don't stick around. So I guess maybe we don't have to worry about whether or not he finishes all 4 years or what the Raiders' plan is in 4 years, because they'll probably be making a change in 2 years, right?
maybe
paying him not to coach.
I thought it was a yearly tradition we do the coaching search.
I mean, it very well could be. I feel like you got to give Pete Carroll more than 1 year, and you don't hire Pete Carroll if you're not going to give him time to try and get your program back on the right footing. But it's like you need an overhaul, right? Like you need stability long term, because it's been so regularly that you guys are constantly looking for a new coach. So you need some long-term stability. Is that Pete Carroll? Because by the end of this, he's almost 80 years old? You know, he's getting close to that mark. We're worried about his age already, and you're trying to think long-term about what the franchise is going to be. So not only are you maybe, like, to me in my head, I would think, one, we are looking for, you know, the franchise quarterback, so maybe you're trying to develop a rookie quarterback, and maybe you look for a stopgap in Russell Wilson. I know our friend of the program, Matt Bagley, who's a big Raiders fan, suggested Geno Smith.
Okay, dude, he was arguing trading a 2nd-round pick for Geno Smith.
Well,
like,
so
what are we doing?
Just hear me out. Maybe you get a stopgap, you know, for now. And you try to develop a quarterback for the future, whether that's Aiden O'Connell or a rookie from this year's draft, whatever. But also, could you develop the coach in waiting situation, which to me never works out the way you want it to. But that's kind of where you're at with a hire of Pete Carroll, is like the future. This is a short-term hire, which maybe that's what the Raiders are constantly looking at because they're always short-term hires. But getting this program back to some stability and not just being kind of year to year, that seems like that would be my focus. And Pete Carroll seems like a short-term focus.
I think that's what it is. It's to gain some stability, to try to make it the safe pick, right? To make sure that in 3 years you're in a better place than where you're at right now.
But does that mean in 3 years you're just back to trying to find another head coach? And
that's where I'm at, because I think that at the end of the day, he needs to bring in a young guy that's going to take over for him. He needs to have his Ryan Day in waiting. Urban Meyer left, and then after Urban Meyer was gone, guess what? Ryan Day gets promoted, and he now wins the national championship. It took a long time for him to win a national championship, but he finally got there, he was competitive for a while. He was
look
born
at New
on
England.
Base.
It was going to be, you had a coach in waiting scenario with Jared Mayo.
I don't think that Jared Mayo was the guy in waiting for them. I think that they wanted.
They probably had a few different guys that were the guy in waiting.
I think the guy in waiting was probably Josh McDaniels, but then Josh McDaniels bolted for the Raiders.
Well,
again.
and Belichick was there for so long, so it's you're the guy in waiting when after 5 years and the success that he had, it's okay, how much longer does he do it? He's been there at the top of the mountain, he's done it. Maybe he retires here in a couple of years. You're the guy in waiting. Okay, no, he's still sticking around, and you've gotten opportunities to go elsewhere. Okay, you're the next guy in waiting. All right, you're the next guy in waiting. So many times did they do that? But it's how
many times has that happened? I'm trying to think. I don't think there's been many times where a guy's been the quote unquote coach in waiting, unless it's this year Steve Belichick with Bill Belichick at North Carolina.
If we look outside of the NFL or football in general, you had Duke with Coach K and his coach in waiting, and it's Duke hasn't gone away, but they haven't won national championships.
Sure.
And so, you get to that moment where
but
some of those long-term...
It feels like it's a rarity, though.
It doesn't. It's a rarity that coaches stick around for that long anymore.
It feels like coaches kind of get fired at the end of their career instead of, retired at the end of their career.
Anymore. Yeah, for sure.
All I can think of, the last coach this old was, Romeo Crennel. 2021 with the Texans. That, it's been quite a while since a coach has been this old and coaching. Already Pete Carroll's going to be the oldest NFL coach in NFL history.
Yeah.
At least being a head coach. So it's a little concerning.
You've got Andy Reid at Kansas City. Was it Eric Bieniemy? Was he the coach in waiting, or is he just the guy that everybody thought should be a head coach and never gets that chance?
Well, he tried to pave his own path. He went to Washington for the 1 year, then he went to UCLA, and I don't even know where Bieniemy is now.
I think I heard his name pop up here recently that he was going somewhere, but. So it's definitely interesting to me. The Raiders have been short-term as it is, so maybe it fits in with their grand scheme, but I do wonder where does the future come into the decision-making with Pete Carroll? I think, like you said, I think he's a safe hire. I think he'll probably do some good things, but will he be able to invest enough time long-term to really get this program humming the way he did when he had Seattle going in the right direction, the way he did when he had USC moving in the right? Can he have enough time at Las Vegas to be able to get the Raiders back to a program that is continually looking towards the playoffs? How long do you think it takes to turn an NFL team around? That's a great question.
Well, it depends on the NFL team. I think for the Raiders, it takes 3 years. It genuinely is going to take 2 to 3 years for the Raiders to be consistently competitive again. And you need to make some trades and sell some assets, because that's exactly what the Lions did. They traded Matt Stafford, and sure, they didn't necessarily win a playoff game this year, but they got a lot of picks with that. And next thing you know, it's they got Jahmyr Gibbs, they got Sam Laporta, they got Jameson Williams, Jared Goff's slinging it. That was a pretty good trade for both teams, the Rams and Lions. Obviously, the Lions get get all those draft picks, and the Rams get their Super Bowl.
Yeah,
but you kind of need to sacrifice a little bit, and the Raiders, they need a lot, especially with a lot of their defense. being free agents. Spytek, the new GM, he has some work to do. He's going to have to try to re-sign some of the guys. The good news is the Raiders have a lot of money, so they're going to be in a pretty good spot because they're going to be able to spend money. And you got to spend money to make money. Let's be real. But the one thing I will say, though, that makes me excited about Pete Carroll is, like, think about those times at USC where he's bringing Snoop Dogg on the sideline, Will Ferrell's on the sideline, all those celebrities. You can do that in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of celebrities that are Raiders fans. Next thing you know, NWA's just sitting on the sideline in Vegas, and Ice Cube's there all the time. It's just a different energy around. Like, I think Pete Carroll can bring that. So I think that's a little bit exciting if you're a Raiders fan. If he can bring that USC swagger and kind of make it the bad boys of the NFL again. A little bit of what Antonio Pierce was trying to do, but to a greater extent.
So weird to think that a 74-year-old's going to bring the hip-hop and energy to a NFL franchise. It's going to be an interesting path going forward for the Raiders. I agree. I think that what the biggest thing, I think, Pete Carroll is a fine hire. I think it's probably not a wrong hire, good or bad. But what else happens with this franchise is really going to be, like you said, who else does he bring in? What does the new GM be able to do? I think those are the bigger questions of what the front office is doing more than what the coaching staff is doing, especially at the head spot with Pete Carroll there. With Pete Carroll, obviously they could have brought in somebody else and it could have been a complete train wreck. But, and the Tom Brady factor, you got to put that in there as well. I know Raider Nation is huge here in Douglas County. We've got we could probably almost build a basketball team with the number of Raider fans that are in the building on a regular basis around here. So, Raider Nation, if you're out there, let us know what you think. 541-673-5551. 673-5551 is the phone number here to the Score Sports Den. Good hire, bad hire. You like it, you dislike it. What else do you want to see happen here as they continue to rebuild now around Pete Carroll there in Las Vegas? Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. You can also chime in on the YouTube channel, 1490 The Score on YouTube. Find us there and hit us up in the comments section like Go Ducks did, who apparently wants to see Oregon's quarterback, Dylan Gabriel,
Hey, I wouldn't
in
mind
black
that.
and silver.
I wouldn't mind that. Dylan Gabriel as a Raiders quarterback.
Take a flyer on him. Where do you think Gabriel goes in this year's draft? What round?
Bottom 3. Like, I think he's
a day 3 guy.
I think he's a 5th, a 7th, or a 5th, a 6th, or 7th pick.
That'd be day 3, right?
Day 3,
that's all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's kind of in that range. My thing about Dylan is he's a good quarterback. He's an experienced quarterback.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have the strongest arm, and he doesn't have the size. And the amount of times I watched Dylan Gabriel this year at Oregon have passes batted down, and you know that the guys, the offensive linemen, the defensive linemen, the linebackers, the defensive back, everybody in the NFL is taller.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel, unfortunately, we can't put stilts on the bottom of your shoes. Russell Wilson, he was able to kind of make it work. Bryce Young has kind of made it work eventually. You have those outliers, Kyler Murray. But the thing about those quarterbacks is I think they're a little bit more mobile than Dylan Gabriel. And number 2, they have a different launch angle. Gabriel kind of throws a flat type of pass. Even when he slings it downfield, it's a very low lining type of line drive type of throw. Whereas Kyler will launch it straight up in the air, and Russ has
those guys all have bigger arms.
Yeah, they have bigger arms, and it's more of an arc type of throw. And you kind of need that if you're a little bit undersized as a quarterback. Dylan doesn't necessarily have that. Can he develop it? Maybe, but that's kind of why I have him in the day 3, 5 to 7 rounds.
I do wonder if there will be any Bo Nix bleed over because, we all talked about Dylan Gabriel, and we got to get to a break here, but Dylan Gabriel coming in Bo Nix was an experienced quarterback, took over a team, and did great things at Oregon. Will there be Oregon and Bo Nix bleed over for Dylan Gabriel, and does a team look at him and go, Hey, we just saw what happened with an Oregon quarterback that had a load of starts at the college level, and then what he did in the NFL in his first year. Maybe we can replicate that with our program. We'll see. I don't. They're obviously not the same quarterback, but we'll see if maybe somebody out there has that mindset going into it. All right, we got to get to a break. We will come back. We're continuing to talk NFL as the program goes on, but do want to give some recap thoughts. Go back and take a look at the national championship game from last weekend where Ohio State pulls it off. We'll take a look at that. Plus the college football playoff. Obviously, now we get to look back and see what the first ever 12-team playoff was like for college football. We'll discuss more about all of that when we come back. Right now, it's time to get you a news update or a sports update here with Knight Jarecki.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Knight Jarecki. Well, it was a tough finish last night for the Roseburg boys basketball team. The Indians visited the Sheldon Irish in Eugene and lost 71-45 in a Southwest Conference contest. The game was close, though, in the first half, and Roseburg trailed by just 7 points at the halftime break, but the Indians were held to just 15 points in the second half, and Sheldon pulled away for the hefty victory. The Irish made 12 three-pointers, led by Nathan Sheely with 8 three-pointers. Sheely finished with a game-high 26 points. Owen Bentia had 14 points to lead the Indians. Coming up tonight on the hardwood, the Roseburg girls will host the Sheldon Irish for a Southwest Conference game. That matchup gets underway at 6:45 p.m. You can tune in for the coverage, starting with the pregame show at 6:30 p.m. on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. Or you can watch online with live video simulcast at 541radio.com. Also tonight in the Far West League, the Sutherland Bulldogs host the South Umpqua Lancers for a rivalry showdown. The boys will tip off first at 5:30 p.m. The girls will follow at 7 p.m. You can tune in for coverage starting at 5:15 p.m. on I-101 FM. The Douglas Trojans have a county showdown with the Glide Wildcats. In the Sunset Conference, the Oakland Oakers are hosting Gold Beach tonight. And in the Skyline League, Riddle travels to Pacific, Elkton hosts Days Creek, and Glendale welcomes in North Douglas. Also on the schedule today, the Roseburg wrestling team is headed to Sherwood for the Research Tournament of Champions. The competition gets underway this afternoon. You can check out the scores from yesterday and the schedules for today online at 541radio.com. And in college basketball last night, the Oregon State men thumped Pepperdine 83-63 in a West Coast Conference game at Gill Coliseum in Corvallis, and the Oregon State women dropped their weekend opener 54-52 on the road at San Francisco.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services, such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
What's the worst job you can think of? Deodorant tester? Yeah! Roadkill cleanup? Snake milker? If you think your job is along those lines, then Lotus Media Group has something for you to consider. We have an immediate opening for a multimedia marketing rep. Start the new year with a new career at an established, locally owned, community-minded company. Start loving your job. Send your resume to careers@nrtoday.com or drop it off at 345 Northeast Winchester in Roseburg.
Recapping games and looking ahead to the weekend, this is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
Recapping games sounds pretty good right about now. Last weekend's national championship game goes to the Ohio State Buckeyes. 34-23, the final score as they take down Notre Dame. Ryan Day wins his first national championship with Ohio State. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving, providing labor services for your moving needs. They're veteran-owned, affordable, dependable, efficient, and careful. They've got senior and veteran discounts available, so you can book now at 541-315-0122 or find them on Facebook at BTB Moving. That is BTB Moving, friends of the program. I really appreciate their sponsorship all season long. Well, Knight, kind of exactly what everybody expected. Ohio State wins the national championship.
Yep.
On paper, they were the most talented team in college football, and they did have a couple of slip-ups during the regular season. A close one against Oregon on the road at Autzen Stadium, one that I don't think anybody was necessarily surprised by, one that nobody was really holding Ohio State all that accountable for. You know, it was a close game that easily could have gone the other direction if things played out just slightly different. But then they have that head-scratcher against Michigan, and they find a way to kind of put that in the rearview mirror, and then they take care of business in the college football playoff, winning 3 rounds and winning it all against Notre Dame. They were heavy favorites in that one. What'd you think of the game? I thought, I mean, was it entertaining? Was it a game that you stayed locked in on?
No, it was not.
I mean, jumping out to,
to be honest, like
31-7?
To be honest, I was anchoring the news.
Oh, yeah. So you got a late start into it.
So I got a late start into it. And as soon as I wrap up the news, it's like midway through the second quarter because the first 2 drives took like an entirety.
Yeah.
So that kind of happened. I turned it on, and, you know, Notre Dame punts, Ohio State goes down, scores a touchdown. Another 3-and-out, back-to-back 3-and-outs after Notre Dame had their impressive 18
opening
plays,
drive, yeah.
75 yards, 9 minutes, 45 seconds. Ridiculous first drive. But back-to-back 3-and-outs, and after the second 3-and-out, I looked at my dad, and I was on the phone with him, and I told him, I said, oh, the game's over. And he was like, what do you mean the game's over? And I was like, Dad, it's over. And Ohio State scores another touchdown right before the half. They go up the halftime break. It's 21-7, and, you know, I didn't think Notre Dame was coming back from 2 touchdowns. They made it close.
Yeah.
You know, they scored some touchdowns at the end of the game. And
4:15 left. They had it down to an 8-point game. They missed that field goal prior to that touchdown that made it an 8-point game. Like, man,
I didn't really agree with the field goal attempt. I think you got to go for it in that moment and score a touchdown. You're already down by 3 touchdowns plus 3 touchdowns plus 3 2-point conversions.
Yeah.
Like, it was already going to be a stretch to try to come back. I think you got to be aggressive in that situation. Your kicker struggled this year, although he had like kind of cleaned it up, but it's 4th and goal. Like, you got to go for it. I understand it's from the 9.
Yeah.
You still got to go for it. Like, you're running out of time. Be more aggressive. Like, you know, you're not taking
What do you got to lose at this point?
What do you got to lose? Like,
Yeah.
You're not taking any points home with you. You got to leave them all out there.
Yeah. I mean, that missed field goal was to come away with no points.
Yeah,
was just it's just unfathomable. You can't do that, and so that was killer. I think it really. I mean, it obviously changes the game from the aspect of you're limited on what you can do from that point. Like, you just have to. It's touchdowns or bust from that point on. It put them obviously in a very tough situation. I mean, great to see that Notre Dame made it a game late, and I think brought some entertainment to the second half of that game after I'm sure many people tuned out in the first half. So I really think, to
be honest, like I there was a second where I turned it off, and then I turned it back on. When it was 31-7 midway through the third quarter, I turned it off. And, well, no, I didn't fully turn it off. I put it on my phone, and then I put hockey on the TV. And then I was like, okay, Notre Dame scored.
All right, it's getting interesting again.
Oh, Notre Dame scored. Oh, okay. Let's put it on and see.
Yeah. It was. I think we knew going into it that Notre Dame was going to have to play a perfect game.
I also didn't get why go cover 0 on that blitz play on 3rd down against Ohio State? That didn't really make a lot of sense too. You needed to stop.
Yeah.
I don't know if you bring the house in that situation. Like, it's 3rd and long. You got to defend in the secondary. You know they're going to throw it. Like, why? I didn't really understand that. That to me, and this has happened several times this year, and I've sent my friends the exact same tweet, but it's like when the Raiders had Henry Ruggs and they beat the Jets because the Jets just brought the house and the Raiders threw a Hail Mary at the end of the game. They're taking a shot. Go out and defend it. Don't bring the house and leave nobody out there to defend. You're putting one guy one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith on the outside. That's foolish. That's foolish. Like, I thought that Notre Dame was an academic prowess of a school. But
well, nobody says that their coaches are going to the school and getting the academics done there.
Well, exactly, and that's certainly something that I learned in that game.
So, obviously, it was kind of what was anticipated. I thought Notre Dame proved they very much belonged in the situation. I think, obviously, it proved that Ohio State really put everybody on their heels because you have to basically play perfect when they are playing at their level of ability. And so just too many mistakes for Notre Dame to be able to pull that one off, although I think they proved that they were a very good team to be able to fall behind by 31-7 and then still find a way to be back in that game late. I think, to me, that proved a lot about Notre Dame's talent and their ability on the season. So good for them. The big discussion coming out of it, though, was, I mean, like you, a lot of people kind of zoned out on this. And I don't know. I'd be curious I don't know if they break it down like this, but if you can tell kind of where people started to tune out. Did the numbers on viewership decline because the game got so lopsided early in the contest? Or did people just not tune in from the get-go for this national championship? But viewership was down like 5%, and everybody's trying to figure out why.
I think it's a mixture of both. Like, you have two teams in the same region, right? Like Midwest teams. Like, if you're from the Southeast and, you despise Notre Dame and you despise Ohio State, why do you want to watch that game? Me and my friends, at least, the way that we were talking about this game going into it, we were really hoping for the Coach Beamer meme that's always out there where he's like has both hands up and he's like celebrating the 0-0 end of regulation game. That's what we were hoping for. We've all in our group chats, at least my group chats, we were like, come on, punters. Come on, defense. Like we just did not want to see either team score. Yeah. Because we don't like these teams. And Ohio State gets out to a big lead and, for us Oregon fans that saw Ohio State just beat us in the Rose Bowl, and if you're a Penn State fan or you're a Michigan fan, why do you want to watch that? Like, why do you want to see Ohio State lift the trophy? Like, it's not something that you desire. It's not like an underdog story. It's not like TCU makes it to the national championship game and somehow they upset Georgia. Obviously they got blown out too. Yeah. But it's like, if a team like TCU makes it to the national championship game, they win their first national championship, or Oregon makes it, and there's something to play for, then great. But it's like, gosh, really, Ohio State again, the favorite at the beginning of the year against a Notre Dame team, and maybe Notre Dame shouldn't have been there because they kind of got an easy schedule because they're an independent team, and we haven't really watched Notre Dame this year because their schedule is kind of mid, and their best game this year was playing Army or Navy. I don't know. I think that's why.
I mean, these are two programs, though, that, like you pointed out, they've got huge fan bases. They are blue bloods of the sport, but neither had won a national championship, at least in 10 years. And so it's not like it's a retread of Alabama and Clemson, like that we got for I don't know how many years there during the 4-team era. It's not Georgia once again. It was some new blood back in the national championship.
But Ohio State's consistently been.
They've been in the contention. Yes. No, I totally get that. So the viewership was down. The reason I keep seeing is that the college football playoff is too long. And that it was 60 days, I think it was, between the start of the playoff and the end of the playoff. They played 2 rounds of the NFL playoffs between the semifinals and the championship game. It's an issue. It doesn't appear to be one that the college football playoff committee, the leaders that be in college football, are going to be addressing anytime soon. Next year, I think, was too soon for them to make any major changes. So everybody was hoping, and maybe after this next college football playoff, that maybe we start to see some adjustments to tweak this to make it better. Nope. Today they announced that the 2026-27 national championship game will be held in Las Vegas. Big day for Las Vegas today, by the way.
Woo!
But it's going to be held even later, January 25th. This year it was on the 20th. It's going to be on the 25th in 2027 for the national championship a year from this next season. So
here's my take on it. You got to start the college football season earlier. Like, here's my thought process. And I get it. Like, you got teams in the South, and they're going to be baking in early August. But wouldn't you rather...
Do they not all have indoor practice facilities that are probably air-conditioned?
Sure, but, like, outside for those games, like a game at Alabama at high noon on a...
Schedule it schedule it in a cooler area.
Yeah.
I mean, they schedule... College baseball gets scheduled with everybody basically playing in Arizona and Florida to start out the year. Can't we just find a way to start out the college football season in cooler weather areas that aren't
100%.
Nearly as muggy?
But when you rather, like, as a college football, fan, be competing with NFL preseason over the NFL postseason,
for sure.
That's that's the time to do it, because right now, at the beginning of August, all you got is NFL preseason. And let's be honest, NFL preseason is a joke.
Yeah, nobody cares
about NFL preseason anymore.
You would much rather watch college football than an NFL preseason game.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm locked in on the Raiders preseason because I want to see some of the
but you would be more than happy to have that either on a second screen or just watch highlights later
100%,
or read a recap.
100%. I would way rather watch a college football game that actually matters and means something in mid-August. You know? So if you start the season a few weeks earlier, you're not competing with the NFL postseason, and you can wrap up on New Year's Day, which is the best time to have the national championship game.
Yeah.
There's all eyes there. Have the semifinals right before Christmas. Everybody's at home. Maybe Christmas Eve you do the NFL or the college football semifinals, and then on New Year's Day you get the national championship.
Yeah. They've got to find a way to tweak this and make it a product that we don't start to lose track of in the post. And the competition with the NFL is going to be a real thing no matter what you do about it. And just the NFL playoffs are going to be the sun that everyone's attention just starts to focus and get gravitational pull towards. You're just not going to be able to get away from that. And so, you've got to do everything you can. I mean, college football has always been a business, but it is turning more business-like for everyone involved in it. And somebody's got to start making business decisions.
100%. So there's a couple of things that now thinking about it. So the University of Oregon, they're on a quarter system. Students don't get to campus till the last week of September. Mm-hmm. So if you move the season earlier, students probably aren't going to the games a little bit more in the early season.
I mean, they don't even sell or they don't have a student, they've got maybe one section or two sections that are the student section, or
those first few games.
Yeah, I don't even know if they have that. I know the Boise State game we went to that was early in the year, they were selling tickets to fans for the student section. So,
so that's part of it too, right? So you would have to kind of maybe adjust the school calendar,
and it brings a little bit of a different environment to the game when there aren't the students there.
Yes, 100%. Now, the other thing that, what I would argue would be a great thing for college football is if you do the model that I'm suggesting, have the national championship game on New Year's Day and then have the semifinals on Christmas Eve, the week before. If you do that, you know what it does is it makes the other bowl games more interesting because those other bowl games are going to be happening at the same time. And there's been a lot of talk about whether or not the expanded playoff would make the ratings go down for the other bowl games, but this year they kind of went up a little bit. And I think that if you had the semifinals during Christmas Eve and then you had the national championship during Christmas Day, that holiday period in December where a lot of those games were played this year wouldn't be being played, and therefore all those games that would be being played during that time would be the other bowl games. I think that the ratings would go up for those other bowl games. There would be a lot more interest in them because that's the time where people are at home and watching those games during their holiday break.
Yeah, they've got a little bit more downtime going on there at that period. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how the powers that be start to try and tweak this, or when or if they do. I really thought... It's so weird, the roller coaster that the playoffs took us on with college football. We all were upset about the seeding at the start of it and how unfair it was to the number one seed and all of the matchups in it going into it and the first-round buys and whether or not the right teams are getting those. And then by the end of it, I felt like we did the perception from a lot of the national media went from this needs to be tweaked to 180 degrees. don't mess with it now. Let's continue to see how this plays out, and let's not just take 1 year and think everything needs to be changed because this 1 year it didn't work out the way we thought it should. So it's weird how this roller coaster was with the National College Football Playoff. It will be interesting to see just how long it takes things to maybe change. And, hey, maybe next year it all works out differently and we all feel really good about how the College Football Playoff went. One thing about college football that is definitely different has been the NIL era, and it continues to just become a behemoth. I saw an article here recently that suggested something that I don't think that anybody would have necessarily ever expected, and I want to talk about it when we come back. Should the star wide receiver for Ohio State find a new team? We'll talk about it when we come back. It is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving here on The Score.
Good afternoon with the Score News Update. I'm Nate Jarecki. A cold weather advisory is in effect from 10 p.m. tonight through 10 a.m. on Sunday for a wide area in southern Oregon. Forecasters at the National Weather Service said very cold temperatures combined with gusty winds will lead to wind chill values as low as 10 to 15 degrees. The advisory area includes central Douglas County, Josephine and Jackson counties, and eastern Curry County. This includes Roseburg, Grants Pass, Medford, and Cave Junction. Listen to News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN and check 541radio.com to stay connected with updated weather information. And the United Community Action Network's Roseburg Warming Center will activate for tonight. Warm meals, shelter, and resources will be available. The center remains at Hadco's James D. Myers Activity Center at 990 West Stanton Street. For updates on the Roseburg Warming Center, go to the United Community Action Network Facebook page, which we have linked on our story at 541radio.com. In sports, well, it was a tough finish last night for the Roseburg Indians, who fell 71-45 at Sheldon High School in a Southwest Conference contest. The game was close, though, in the first half, and Roseburg trailed by just 7 points, 37-30 at the halftime break. But the Indians were held to just 15 points in the second half, and Sheldon pulled away for the hefty victory. The Irish made 12 three-pointers in their lopsided win, led by Nathan Sheely with 8 three-pointers. Sheely finished with a game-high 26 points for the Irish. Owen Bentia had 14 points to lead the Indians. Taking a look at the weather today, it's going to be mostly sunny with a high near 43 degrees. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 27 degrees. Tomorrow, sunny with a high near 44 degrees. Tomorrow night, mostly clear with a low around 25 degrees. News and information is available 24/7 at 541radio.com. I'm Nate Jarecki, here on The Score.
Coastal is bringing you store-wide and site-wide savings for 24 hours.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, with just what the country needs.
Shop the one-day sale on January 25th to save 20% off all apparel, footwear, and clothing accessories. Then take 10% off everything else in-store and online. Grab heaters, generators, and tools from top brands like DeWalt. Replenish pet food, beds, collars, and pet toys. Get the best prices on feed and check out our sporting goods for everything from safes to optics, all for 10% off. Plus, you can save an additional 50% off clearance clothing, footwear, and clothing accessories at Coastal during the 24-hour sale.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, with just what the country needs.
Shop in-store or online this Saturday to save on all your essentials.
Covering the latest buzz from the gridiron, this is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
Well, Jeremiah Smith has been all the rage in the college football world as...
He's a mutant.
he really should be. I mean, he just had an amazing season as a freshman at Ohio State. He can't go to the NFL yet. He's not eligible, draft eligible yet, because he just hasn't been out of high school long enough. So he's got more time in college football after winning a national championship with Ohio State. Matt Hayes of USA Today suggests that, if he was smart, Jeremiah Smith would enter the transfer portal and start looking for a new NIL deal that could be worth bucket loads.
The number I saw earlier was $4.5 million a school offered him to transfer.
I wouldn't be surprised. So
I think it had to be higher, right?
I was trying to. So Marvin Harrison Jr. Was a draft pick. He was number 4 overall this year, right?
Yep.
And he got, I'm trying to find the number. It was in this stinking article here. Here we go. Marvin Harrison Jr., first wide receiver selected in last year's draft, going number 4 overall. Totally would be, if Jeremiah Smith could go into the NFL, he would be top 5 pick easy. Right? Easy. Marvin Harrison's contract, guaranteed $35.3 million. And that's all fully guaranteed. Smith would be, for sure, the number 1 wide receiver, would most likely be a top 5 draft pick. Why wouldn't it be realistic for him to say, look, I mean, I guess he probably can't ask that much because he can't go to the NFL and get that contract because he's not eligible. But, I mean, he can say, look, I'm worth this level of financial respect with this financial investment from your university because this is the kind of talent I am. Yeah, he could get. I mean, I would imagine he could get $15 million for a year next year.
Oh, I think he could. Like, I mean, think about this. Carson Beck just went from Georgia to Miami. He's reported to make over $4 million this season.
Yeah,
like. No offense to Carson Beck, but like Jeremiah Smith impacts the game way more than Carson Beck impacts the game. Like Jeremiah Smith is the best player in college football right now, undoubtedly. Yeah. Like, I mean, he might even go number 1 when he's coming out of the NFL draft.
Yeah,
I understand the NFL is a very quarterback-driven league, but he is that good of a wide receiver.
Yeah, he really is.
And that's the thing, man, is that like Ohio State wins the national championship because of Jeremiah Smith. Like, look what he did against Oregon. Look what he did against Tennessee just to get them to the national championship game. And when they needed a big play in the biggest moment, who did they go to? They went to Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, he was everything for Ohio State. It's crazy to think in the college football world that the best player on the team, the guy that basically did everything he could for that team to win a national championship, would then suddenly turn his back on the team and say, I'm going somewhere else. And do it because of money. But in a sport that will chew you up and spit you out, the talk has always been get your money while you can get your money because you never know when that opportunity is going to come to an end. He still has to play, another year or 2 in college football before he can go to the NFL?
2 more years. Unless he wants to pull a Maurice Claret.
I mean, so he's... What could happen in 2 years, 2 college football seasons?
Yeah.
He could be destroyed. He could lose it all. And so, I mean, if you told me, we always look at athletes, and especially college athletes, in this realm that, like, they should do things differently than any other person in the entire universe would do. You would take the opportunity to find a way to make the most money possible. If ESPN came calling to offer me an afternoon drive time show on ESPN radio for $1.1 million. I've been here at Brook Communications for how long? Yeah, they're my family. They're my friends. I would feel bad about leaving them, but I'm leaving them. Like, it's not a question. So why do we ask differently of athletes? He should do it. Matt Hayes says, Jeremiah Smith, stud wide receiver for Ohio State, should enter and chase money. Because, quote, from the article, this isn't about staying true to your school. It's about financial security in a physically demanding business where the end is always one play away. It's just so when I saw this headline, I thought, what in the world? Why are we encouraging a guy to try and seek out something different? But it totally makes sense. This is what college football is, and the players have all the control to leave whenever they want to and to try and get as much money as they can. And if he is available, there are going to be teams falling over themselves to throw cash at him.
Use it as leverage.
Oh, and that's the thing that the article does go on to say is go into the portal, find out how much somebody else is going to offer, and then go back to Ohio State and say, this is what it's going to cost to keep me. And I'm sure they're going to pay it.
Yeah, exactly. You could just get way more money and stay in the same situation. Now the question is if you do that, do your teammates resent you a little bit for doing that?
Oh, for sure.
And do you lose the trust of your coach, right? If your coach thinks that you're just this money-driven person, how does that affect your playing time, your relationship with your coach?
We saw what he did on the field. I think any coach will be like, whatever it takes, I'm going to put you out there. Or if he came back to Ohio State is what you're saying?
Yeah. Because if the coach is like, you don't want to be here, fine, leave. But, like, that's tough to say when he's
right.
that
Are
talented.
you going to put that guy on the bench and not have him out there trying to help you? I mean, for Ryan Day, I think we're kind of crazy to think that if Ryan Day thinks that he's secure in his job at Ohio State just because he won a national championship, that fan base is crazy. I mean, they were the national championship favorites pretty much all season long, even with a loss on their record. And then they went and lost to Michigan, and they wanted him. They wanted him out. And what do? Eventually go on and win a national championship. They wanted to fire the guy that eventually won the national championship this year. I don't think it's going to take much for them to want to fire him again. So I think he's going to probably be looking to try and continue this run as best as he can to continue to make his pocketbook look better and be able to keep his job. So yeah, I don't think any coach could just put him on the sideline and say, yeah, I don't know if I trust you in this situation because you tried to get money. And again, why would you think any less of a player that wants to do that when that is the way the system is designed now for them to be able to do this and generate as much revenue for themselves as possible? We run out of time here for this hour. We can continue this conversation because we want to say that college football is kind of the NFL light, but it is completely different. And it's really in a weird place right now. So we will discuss that when we come back. Get to the break here. We'll come back. Hour number 2 of the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving, coming up here in just a few moments on The Score.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Nate Jarecki. Well, it was a tough finish last night for the Roseburg boys basketball team. The Indians visited the Sheldon Irish in Eugene and lost 71-45 in a Southwest Conference contest. The game was close, though, in the first half, and Roseburg trailed by just 7 points at the halftime break, but the Indians were held to just 15 points in the second half, and Sheldon pulled away for the hefty victory. The Irish made 12 three-pointers, led by Nathan Sheely with 8 three-pointers. Sheely finished with a game-high 26 points. Owen Bentia had 14 points to lead the Indians. Coming up tonight on the hardwood, the Roseburg girls will host the Sheldon Irish for a Southwest Conference game. That matchup gets underway at 6:45 p.m. You can tune in for the coverage, starting with the pregame show at 6:30 p.m. on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. Or you can watch online with live video simulcast at 541radio.com. Also tonight in the Far West League, the Sutherland Bulldogs host the South Umpqua Lancers for a rivalry showdown. The boys will tip off first at 5:30 p.m. The girls will follow at 7 p.m. You can tune in for coverage starting at 5:15 p.m. on I-101 FM. The Douglas Trojans have a county showdown with the Glide Wildcats. In the Sunset Conference, the Oakland Oakers are hosting Gold Beach tonight. And in the Skyline League, Riddle travels to Pacific, Elkton hosts Days Creek, and Glendale welcomes in North Douglas. Also on the schedule today, the Roseburg wrestling team is headed to Sherwood for the Research Tournament of Champions. The competition gets underway this afternoon. You can check out the scores from yesterday and the schedules for today online at 541radio.com. And in college basketball last night, the Oregon State men thumped Pepperdine 83-63 in a West Coast Conference game at Gill Coliseum in Corvallis, and the Oregon State women dropped their weekend opener 54-52 on the road at San Francisco.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Douglas County Cupids shared so much love last Valentine's Day, we're bringing it back. And thanks to Ashley, it's going to be even bigger. We want to make sure to deliver Valentines to as many seniors as we can. Want to help? Drop off or mail Valentine's cards to our offices at 345 Northeast Winchester in Roseburg. We'll hand deliver those to seniors all over Douglas County on Valentine's Day. This is your chance to help us share the love. with Ashley, the News Review, and The Score.
Local sports talk in Douglas County. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. Fridays, noon to 2, right here on 92.3 FM KWRZ Canyonville and 1490 AM KSKR Roseburg. We're The Score, Douglas County's home for sports. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. We're setting up shop, so pop open the cooler, pull up a seat.
Who wants to have some fun?
Let's talk some pigskin.
You just want me next to your side to shoot photos and do color and
It's
do
nice
stats.
to have a Swiss Army knife there in the booth with me to do all the things that I can't do while I'm doing broadcasting on top of it. So.
I mean, it's not like you're not a Swiss Army knife yourself.
Well, it's nice to have multiple tools. So we are a couple of tools here in the studio for you today.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Yep, that's
If you were a tool, what tool would you be?
hammer.
Hammer.
Power drill.
You wasted no time.
I did not, no.
You've thought about this.
No, I haven't. I'm very surprised.
Just straight up, you were like hammer. Like
I'm
that was-
surprised I had that answer that quickly.
You were
on
like
top
you
of-
hammered it.
I
Like,
did.
I feel
I
like
nailed that one.
Yeah, you did nail.
Welcome back. Puns aplenty here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. It's Joey Keeran and Nat Jarecki with you, hanging out here on a Friday. Hour number 2 on the program. We've been talking plenty of football. We were talking college football in the last segment. I felt like you had something you were going to chime
No,
in
that
with
was
there.
that was just funny.
That was good.
that was good
stuff there, huh?
That was good.
We were talking Jeremiah Smith, the stud wide receiver for Ohio State, and whether or not he should test the waters of the transfer portal just to see what kind of NIL deal he can get out there. I wanted to circle back to that here in a moment, but we've got more coming up for you here this hour. We did talk about the big news that came out this morning. If you haven't heard, Pete Carroll is the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Raider Nation, let us know how you feel about that. 541-673-5551 is the phone number here to the Score Sports Closet. 541-673-5551. You can chime in there. You can hit us up on the YouTube channel as well. We are streaming at 1490 The Score on YouTube. You can tune in and watch there. Hit the subscribe button to make sure that you are alerted every time we go live with another broadcast on our YouTube channel. We appreciate you hitting the subscribe button and joining our fan base there. You can make comments in the comment section and let us know what you think about what's going on with the program here today. National Championship, Ohio State winning. If you've got thoughts on the National Championship game, it played out just about how we all expected to there. You can share your thoughts on whether or not. Did you watch the whole game? What did you think about that? Because viewership was down, and we talked a little bit about the college football playoff structure and how it feels like change is needed there, but it's not coming anytime soon. Hey, I wanted to give a quick programming note for everybody here. We've got Blazers basketball coming up with pregame at 3 o'clock this afternoon. They tip off at 4 o'clock, wrapping up a 3-game road trip in Charlotte today. They take on the Hornets. 4 o'clock tip-off. Pregame starts at 3, so tune in for Blazers basketball coming up this afternoon, and that is going to roll right into Roseburg basketball tonight. The Roseburg girls are taking on the Sheldon Irish, and we're going to have coverage of that game for you. Boys played last night, so we got a Friday night free. We decided let's go cover the girls. They're at home this evening, so tune in to hear some Roseburg girls basketball here on The Score, or watch it on our YouTube channel at 1490 The Score there on YouTube and at 541radio.com. Wanted to get that little tidbit in on the program before I forgot about it here later on. So we got a lot going on here on the radio for you today, but also wanted to cover here this second hour. NFL playoffs coming up this weekend. We'll have coverage of the conference championship games for you on Sunday starting at 11, and Pro Bowl game is next week. We'll have coverage of that for you next weekend as well, and heard some news about the NBA All-Star game and some changes coming there, and it just had me thinking All-Star festivities once again. So we got a lot to get to here, but I wanted to start off just continuing our conversation about Jeremiah Smith and just college football and the world we're in right now, and just how weird it is with college football about just kind of how everything is. And we talked about this off the air. Maurice Clarett, you mentioned his name. He tried to sue to be able to go to the NFL early. Didn't work out for him. Had to sit out a year. Who knows how that changed the arc of his career.
By the way, he was at the Rose Bowl.
Last one?
Yeah, he was on the sideline at the
Good for him.
Oregon-Ohio State
Well,
game.
I was going to say that his professional career didn't really pan out. And so who knows if having to sit out a season was the reason why.
I think it's a big reason.
I wouldn't be
especially at the time. Like, I think that, like, you know, nowadays, like, you can kind of get away with taking a year off because there's just so many trainers and programs available to train in the off season. But at that time, like, it just wasn't the same way. And so for him, I think he struggled after a year and got a little bit overweight. But apparently, according to the Ohio State people, he's around the campus a lot. He's around the program, and he's invested a lot in Ohio State, which, I mean, you know, that was his glory years.
Yeah, good for him. I don't blame him for doing that. But he tried to test the system, and I wonder, because we're talking about how Jeremiah Smith should enter the transfer portal to try and see who's going to pay him the most money to play next year. You got to know that a bunch of teams are going to probably be willing to fork up the money to bring him in, and it's probably going to be north of $4 million, $5 million or more to do that. And I saw that the article that I got this kind of inspiration from was a USA Today sports article from Matt Hayes. In there, he mentioned that Jeremiah Smith's from Miami area.
He is.
Could it be the Hurricanes that pair him up with Carson Beck there? Cristobal. I mean, you got to think that Cristobal, like,
I think
he's been showing he's willing to pony up for money. So
wasn't it Miami? Like, I remember his recruitment. Like, at the very last minute, there was like speculation that he might not go to Ohio State. They had to fend off another team, and I think it was either Miami or Florida.
I don't know. No. I don't recall at all. So, but I don't think it's going to be all that long before we see somebody else test this. Like, we've seen so many court cases lately when it comes to college football about the student athletes getting paid, about the possibility of, you know, collective bargaining and all these kind of different things that go into it. There's so many things. I can't keep track of all of what's going on when it comes to the court cases. But I can't imagine that, you know, somewhere along the line that somebody's going to try and test these waters again, like Maurice Clarett, of trying to get to the NFL earlier. Now, maybe I'm wrong in the fact that that college football players don't need to try and leave for the NFL earlier because they can make bucket loads of money in college football as it is. So it's not like Jeremiah Smith is hurting by staying in college for another 2 years because that's what's required. He's going to be a multi-millionaire before he ever steps foot in the NFL, and maybe he's not in a huge rush to get to the pro ranks. I would imagine if he had the option to do it, I would think he would, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's okay with spending another couple of years in college knowing he's going to get paid no matter what he's doing one way or the other. But I think there is more money to be made in the NFL, and if you start that clock sooner, it just means hopefully your opportunity to make more money in the NFL is a longer window. And I would think that he is the exception to the rule. There are not many guys that are going to be this ready for the NFL this early at such a young age.
He is the rarity because he's a mutant.
Yeah. And so I don't think if they were to roll back the restrictions on how early you can try to go to the NFL, because you can make money in college football now, I don't think you're going to see a lot of guys trying to go too early and then finding themselves kind of screwed over by the system because they couldn't make it in the NFL because they just weren't ready and they left too soon in college football. I think guys that may be that borderline player that maybe they think they're ready but they're not quite there, why risk it when you can stay and make money at college level and get better and then hopefully see the return on your investment from being a college athlete for another year by making more because you're drafted earlier in the NFL after another year of college football. I don't think the system is going to be at risk because of the way college football is nowadays.
Yeah. And it's very funny because I remember like Matt Barkley. Remember Matt Barkley was going to be like the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, and then he came back for his senior year at USC, and then he didn't really play well his senior year, and all of a sudden he was like a 6th-round draft pick, 4th-round draft pick, somewhere down. Like he wasn't a first-round pick. Like he was going to be the number 1 overall pick, and he decided to come back and stay. Like, you know, guys want to get to the NFL because, you know, at a certain point they're guaranteed a lot of money for coming out. And now it's kind of the opposite. You can stay for another year, and maybe you hurt your NFL projection, whether you be the 1st-round pick, 2nd-round pick. But you can make a lot of money for that extra year coming back to college. And so I think that's kind of what guys are going to have to decide. But, I mean, for a lot of fringe guys, a lot of your huge college football contributors, the Dylan Gabriels of the world that, we're talking about to, maybe be a 5th to 7th round pick, maybe even goes undrafted. Like, he comes back and spends a year at Oregon and, he has enough money to buy a minivan and, take the guys out on trips and go to Southern Oregon for a vacation. There's benefits for, your average college football superstar compared to like the NFL superstars that are going to go out and make a lot of money in the NFL. I think that your good college football players are going to be able to make a lot more money, and your guys that are, maybe fringe guys or whether or not going to get drafted can make a lot of NIL money for coming back for another year. And for Jeremiah Smith, I mean, he's ready to go to the NFL. At least that's what we think. And, a lot of people think, but for him, like, he just has to wait. And why? I don't know what his NIL deal at Ohio State is. You got to think it's pretty good.
You would have to think so.
Like, at the end of the day, like, if you've won the national championship and Ohio State's paying you, what, $10 million right now? Why leave?
Why? It's a great question.
Why leave?
If you can make
why
that
even
kind
try
of,
to leverage? Like, you be happy with what you're bringing in. Like,
if you can make that kind of money for the next couple of years,
I'm sure the NIL is looking pretty darn good right now. In Ohio State, especially like you'd imagine that like. There's a lot of people that were probably hesitant about donating money to the program with Ryan Day being the head coach, but now that he's won a national championship, maybe they continue to empty their pockets or maybe even empty their pockets more.
I think they were by far the most expensive college football roster this year in college football. So, yeah, you got to imagine that.
Pay for a roster and win a national championship. Wow, what a concept.
Yeah, people are probably going to sign up for that plenty. They are talking.
It's like baseball, man. Just no salary cap, just no rules. It's ruining the sport.
It really is. College football is in a spot where it needs
help.
It needs help.
It needs a commissioner.
What did I write down here? Let's see here.
God, please help.
Right? No. I think I wrote down that college football is in real trouble and has to start thinking more as a business. I mean, it's like we kind of tried to they've been trying to toe this line of amateurism and we're students and all of this for so long. It's been getting drug into this new era. College football needs to start thinking like a business. Well, there have been people in college football that have been thinking like businessmen, and those have been the ones that are making all the money. And now everybody's realizing, why the heck are we not all making money? And the people that were making money are like, whoa, why do we need to change things?
Well,
why do you guys want some of this? It's not that great. It's just money in my bank account. It needs to have someone to run this thing like a business. College football. And the college athletics, no. College football, yes, needs to be turned into a business.
Here's my thing is that, like, I mean, even you and I, we're talking about it right now. We're talking about NIL money, entering the transfer portal to get more money. Like, what happened to the days of, like, hey, I want to go to Stanford because they have a really good engineering program and I want to be an engineer someday. Kayvon Thibodeau went to Oregon, not because of just the flash and just the trajectory the program was on, but because he's talked about wanting to be a sports broadcaster someday, and he liked the SOJC, and he went and toured these universities and really liked that program. We're not really talking about these college athletes as students anymore. We're not talking about them going and getting their college degrees anymore. We're really just talking about them as athletes. And I think that's the big shift in where things stand. Nick Saban, he came out, his wife said that, like, the main thing that took Nick away from football was the relationships. They used to invite players over for dinner, and they're no longer able to invite players over for dinner because when they do, it's not about, hey, how's things going at school? How's your relationship with your parents? How's your relationship with your girlfriend? It's, thanks for dinner. I need an extra $1 million or I'm leaving next week. Like, what?
Well, I mean, I don't remember who it was that said it, but didn't go to college to play school. They went to college to play football.
Who Cardell Jones?
That sounds like it could be right, but I don't know.
Cardell Jones.
Yeah. So I think we've
I think that's a bad mindset. So here's my question too: is that, like, there's a lot of money that goes into paying these football players a full ride scholarship. With the age of NIL, would you give them an NIL contract with an additional boost of whatever that money was for their academics, and then it's up to them if they want to pay out of their own pocket or out of the money that the school gives them for their education?
I mean, it is really a gray, like we're into a murky waters with all of it because
when you think
it is based around you are a athlete at a university, and so yeah, I mean, either these universities are going to be funding minor league football teams, or they've got a school club team that is, I mean, like I call it a club, but I mean, they've got obviously football teams. Universities, like the University of Oregon, like they're either going to be funding a minor league football team that they're paying the athletes to be on that football team, or they're going to have students that are good enough to play football on their team that is associated with the university because it's a club, it's a sport to do that they offer. You know, I'm not probably vocalizing this very well, but like I think you get what I'm saying. It's just like, are they employees or are they students? And that's where we're at. And it's very murky waters because how do you navigate all of that? Do you give scholarships? Do you require them to be in classes?
And it varies per sport, right? Like, would you say that like the football players are employees and sure they're bringing in a lot of the revenue and a lot of the money?
Mm-hmm.
What about the acrobatics and tumbling athletes? Are they considered employees because they're not necessarily bringing in the revenue? Like they're paying a lot. I think for a 45-person team, they get a shared combined 13 and a half scholarships for the entire team.
Yeah.
So it's like, are they employees or are they more students? I think it varies per sport.
Oh, for sure. And that's why I was saying college football needs somebody to run it more like a business. The rest of college athletics, they don't survive without college football and the money it generates. So it's definitely different, obviously, for the different. And that's one of the things I think talked about this recently was that a recent lawsuit, the decision came out to say revenue sharing, if you're going to be paying student athletes, you have to do it equally among every student athlete. And that means a acrobatics and tumbling athlete is going to get as much as a college football athlete. And I mean, I get that they said it needs to be shared evenly. Okay, I guess I can kind of understand that, but at the same time, that doesn't make any sense. They're not valuable at the same level. So it's definitely very murky waters. And that's why they need leadership that is going to do something that actually makes decisions for the betterment of the future of the sports.
Who do you think? Like, is it Nick Saban? Josh Pate wants it bad.
The college football college sports commissioner.
Would you pick Josh Pate?
He really wants
it.
He is not bashful about trying to put his name in there as the guy that is going to be running college football. I mean, I think he would be fine to have on the round table. Like, he's a guy that knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, he's plugged in. He's got plenty of opinions. And
certainly,
I think he has definitely got the betterment of the sport in his mind. Granted, it behooves him, if the sport is good, to because that's what he makes his money and his living off of, is covering college football. So.
Well, he also looks through it with a very Southern lens,
True.
That's his.
Well, it just means more down there. So
yeah, it's his worldview.
I mean, continue to say that the next 5 years of college athletics are going to be remarkable when we look back on them to find out exactly where everything ends up in the future. Because the next 5 years, I think, are going to be a completely topsy-turvy and a roller coaster where major changes are developed at some point. I mean, we are getting close.
Look at the major changes in the last 5 years.
Exactly. And we're about to the end of some major media contracts with kind of the postseason structure and with a lot of this stuff. And I mean, we all know that college football drives what's going on with college athletics. And I think we are getting close to the point where changes can happen. And I think a lot of changes will be happening.
Do you feel like, I mean, at least for me, like, I feel like just the state of college football and the state of sports, everything over the past 5 years has just changed drastically.
Oh, yeah.
And
huge.
Like, do you remember that? I mean, maybe because I'm just kind of being a young adult now. Like, from 2010 to 2015, like if you can remember that era, did it feel like the sports are just changed that drastically in a 5-year span? Is this like a consistent cycle, or is this a new thing?
No, it feels like it's completely new. The college football playoff has obviously changed the focus of it. The sport has, I think the BCS era kind of helped really emphasize the national championship where, before it was kind of spread out. It was the national champion was crowned at the end of the year, and it wasn't a game that decided who it was. So all the games were very much the focus because you kind of had an idea which game was going to be the game that the winner of that is your national champion. So you kind of had that idea, but then the BCS era, which is kind of when more of my focus turned into it, you knew the winner of that specific game wins the national championship. Mm-hmm. And so that started to make the other bowl games a little bit less. They weren't necessarily as intriguing because there wasn't the possibility that the winner of that Rose Bowl, the winner of that Orange Bowl, that Cotton Bowl is your national championship. Now it's the BCS national champion is in that game. And it just continued to evolve, especially as we got into the college football playoff era, where that's your focus. And so the rest of it kind of fades into the background a little bit. And I think that is kind of how things have evolved. But the college football playoff era kind of brought in the fact that, look, we realize this is much more like a professional structure. And we realize how much money everybody is making. And I think the development of cable television, the development of streaming, the development of how much access we can get to all of this explained how popular the sport was and how much money was generated by it, how much interest there was in it. And I think as that continued to grow, we started to see that these athletes are valuable. There is value in who they are and what they can do. And as that continued to kind of expand the sport in how they structured it, that I think kind of blossomed in an athlete's head that we already knew you had value, but now we're really starting to see more of the money and seeing how much more it could be valued. It's not just a paper bag filled with a few $100 bills that you got in your locker room, an extra pair of sneakers.
Little bag man.
It's not just that. It's the universities, it's the conferences, it's the television networks that are making billions of dollars off of what you do out on a field on a Saturday and how popular that is. And I think just kind of as the sport continued to grow, which we've continued to see, it has grown with the BCS era. It has grown into the college football playoff era. And we've seen it grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think athletes were not stupid, and they realized that's because of what we do, and people are interested in it, and it's everywhere. We deserve some of that, and I think that is what has spurned where we're at right now, where it was the haves and the have-nots when it came to who was making money off of whom in college sports, and we've completely flipped it to where players have a ton of power nowadays in college athletics. And it's because
maybe more power than anyone.
Yeah, and it's because they just had been getting used for so long, right?
Yeah.
And now they have recognized it and been able to find the way to get that power. And it's because everybody's wanted to try and hold on to that power that now the ones that were the haves are suddenly finding themselves struggling to keep a hold of that, and they are dragging their feet to that, and it is ruining the sport because nobody is taking the accountability of trying to do what's best for the sport. Everybody's just trying to hang on to having the power in it, and it's just it has ruined it. That's for sure. I mean, it hasn't ruined it to a point where it's unwatchable. It's just ruined it in the fact that it's not what we all fell in love with, and if they're not careful, I think we find ourselves in a spot where they risk losing what has been so good for everybody for so long.
Yeah. It's tough for the programs like Washington State and Oregon State and like losing guys, like your best guys go to the portal every year now. It's hard to sustain and build a program. How do you even build a program?
Yeah.
Like anymore because you can't think about the future. You're only thinking about it 1 year at a time, and even not even 1 year. It's like 6 months at a time, because you could like go into the season thinking that you have this guy on your roster, and then all of a sudden, like right before the season starts, actually I'm just going to transfer, go to another school. Midway through the year, this guy quits. Oh, I'm just going to go to another school. You know, like it's hard to plan for that stuff.
Yeah. And the reason why college football is as popular as it is because of the regional interest, right? Like, we're Oregon Duck fans. We, like, went to school there. I grew up in Oregon. My dad grew up in Cottage Grove. He was a Duck fan. Like, it is a regional thing where you get involved in that university, and that's why you are interested in that program, right?
Yeah.
And if it becomes where programs like Oregon State, like Washington State, like the Mountain West schools, that they just kind of start fading into the background because they're not one of the teams that can put up the money to bring in and keep talent in their roster.
They can't compete.
If they can't compete at that level, they're going to just fade into the background. College football is going to turn into the NFL.
How much of that happened this year?
Oh yeah, totally.
Like Oregon State compared that to Oregon this year. How much did Oregon State kind of just fade into the background this year because they weren't having a good season because their coach left and they lost all these players to the transfer portal? Oregon's having a great year, and before it's like even if Oregon State was having a bad year, it's like they're still playing like good teams. They're bringing USC into town. They're bringing Washington into town. Arizona State's coming, but all of a sudden you got Oregon State hosting, like Colorado State or like Wyoming.
Yeah.
Like, they definitely faded a little bit into obscurity because like there just wasn't enough attention on them, and that's certainly going to happen because you're going to get these guys, and then the next year they may be gone, and you can't like fans can't get attached.
Yeah.
Like, think about this. Like, we're lucky as Duck fans because Oregon's a good program. They've invested a lot of money into the program. But, like, it's been awesome getting to see Bryce Betcher develop as, like, a local Oregon kid. And, you get to stick with him for a while. Like, how do you think Oregon State fans feel? Like, Anthony Gould, phenomenal wide receiver. He leaves after 2 seasons and goes to Texas. And now you're seeing him go out there. It's not Gould. It was
Silas
Bolden. That's why I don't know why I said Gould, but
similar
type of wide receiver.
That was a deep cut, man. You're going deep.
But no, Silas Bolden, same thing.
Yeah, for sure. He made big catches in the playoffs.
Big catches in the playoffs, goes to Texas, and has a really good season there. And that's a guy that Oregon State recruited, a underrated recruit, and they brought him in, and after just 2 years, he leaves and goes to a bigger program. And I think that's going to be more of the trend.
Yeah, I think if college football doesn't find a way to include the teams on the fringes, especially the teams on the fringes now, but like every year, even in the years past, every year you had obviously teams that were the front runners to win the national championship. But if you don't have those teams like an Oregon State that can knock off a number 1 team at Reser Stadium on a random Saturday night, if you've got Pac-12 After Dark, all the excitement that's going on there, if the interest in those fringe teams where crazy things like this happen on the occasion, if that goes away, college football loses its essence with that not there, and it becomes more of an NFL light. And if you're trying to compete with what the NFL does, even if during the regular season you play on a completely different day, you're not competing on Sunday with the NFL. But if you are trying to just basically, if college football turns into a lighter version of the NFL, it's going to lose. The interest is going to wane because the NFL is king of everything. Like we've seen it. National championship game, viewership down. Because you're competing. I think playoff games, not the championship game and other playoff games, viewership was not as good as they would have liked to have seen, and you're competing with the NFL head-to-head, going up straight up against them. And if you try to do that, if college football finds itself trying to be the NFL, it's going to lose. And so it needs to keep that regionality. It needs to keep the fringe teams that maybe aren't a national championship contender every year, but maybe there's that 1 year where a coach is able to put it all together and they pull off some fun upsets and they make some noise and they are kind of a fun team to watch. And with an expanded playoff, maybe that team wins 10 games and they get a chance to be in the college playoff, and who knows what happens. The ASU story that we get this year, that's what college football needs. I mean, it makes total sense in college basketball with their 64-team playoff. You get those upsets in the early rounds, and it makes it a lot of fun.
There's
I don't know if you're going to get that in college football.
You can't get that
but
in college football because teams are stashing those guys on their roster. In college basketball, you only got like 14 spots on your team, right?
Well,
and
guys are stashing them, but does that continue to go? If a guy would sit on a roster for the chance to play at Alabama because he knew that would help him make money late, like this is going to get me to the NFL.
Yeah.
He can go make money somewhere else. A team will pay him to come to their school. Yeah. He doesn't have to sit and wait at Alabama to play for the Crimson Tide so that he gets the attention later on down the line. He can go to Oregon State, be a stud, get to play right away, and make some money, and then maybe get his chance to go to the NFL, or then maybe get a chance to go be a starter somewhere else. I mean, it very well could be a volatility of a lot of parity in college football going forward because of how much player movement there is. But also, I think they do need to find a way to stem some of that player movement, not necessarily take away their ability to move to a different school or take away their ability to make money, but find ways to make it more productive to keep the program going. So we have gone really long, and we haven't gotten to any of the NFL stuff coming up this weekend. We could probably continue going on the topic.
100%.
We are very passionate about college football here in the Score Sports Den, but we'll take the break because we need to. Got to pay those bills. We'll come back after this news sports update with Knight Jarecki. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Knight Jarecki. Well, it was a tough finish last night for the Roseburg boys basketball team. The Indians visited the Sheldon Irish in Eugene and lost 71-45 in a Southwest Conference contest. The game was close, though, in the first half, and Roseburg trailed by just 7 points at the halftime break, but the Indians were held to just 15 points in the second half, and Sheldon pulled away for the hefty victory. The Irish made 12 three-pointers, led by Nathan Sheely with 8 three-pointers. Sheely finished with a game-high 26 points. Owen Bentia had 14 points to lead the Indians. Coming up tonight on the hardwood, the Roseburg girls will host the Sheldon Irish for a Southwest Conference game. That matchup gets underway at 6:45 p.m. You can tune in for the coverage, starting with the pregame show at 6:30 p.m. on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. Or you can watch online with live video simulcast at 541radio.com. Also tonight in the Far West League, the Sutherland Bulldogs host the South Umpqua Lancers for a rivalry showdown. The boys will tip off first at 5:30 p.m. The girls will follow at 7 p.m. You can tune in for coverage starting at 5:15 p.m. on I-101 FM. The Douglas Trojans have a county showdown with the Glide Wildcats. In the Sunset Conference, the Oakland Oakers are hosting Gold Beach tonight. And in the Skyline League, Riddle travels to Pacific, Elkton hosts Days Creek, and Glendale welcomes in North Douglas. Also on the schedule today, the Roseburg wrestling team is headed to Sherwood for the Research Tournament of Champions. The competition gets underway this afternoon. You can check out the scores from yesterday and the schedules for today online at 541radio.com. And in college basketball last night, the Oregon State men thumped Pepperdine 83-63 in a West Coast Conference game at Gill Coliseum in Corvallis, and the Oregon State women dropped their weekend opener 54-52 on the road at San Francisco.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services, such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Presenting a Gain Flings love story. Dear love of my life, we were on the 12B bus this morning when I caught a whiff. A scent so fresh, so life-changing, I had to find its source. Alas, I didn't know if you were the woman in the pink freshly washed cardigan or the retired mailman next to me, but I knew one of you was my soulmate. Ah, the scent of Gain Flings. Try Gain Flings with OxyBoost and Febreze.
Talking prep football, Beavers, Ducks, and the NFL. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
Welcome back here from the Score Sports Den. Joey Keeran and Nat Jarecki with you. Whew, we were going heavy on college football there. We'll talk a little bit of NFL here on this segment of the program. It's brought to you by BTB Moving, providing labor services for your moving needs. They're veteran-owned, affordable, dependable, efficient, and careful. They've got senior and veteran discounts available. Book now at 541-315-0122 or find them on Facebook at BTB Moving. Well, we've got 2 games coming up on Sunday, and the NFL Conference Championships will be decided. You've got 11 o'clock, our pregame show kickoff on Sunday, Washington and Philadelphia in the NFC Championship, and then in the afternoon, coverage around 3:30 for Buffalo and Kansas City, the game that everybody's waiting for there. As we enter into the weekend, Philadelphia, 6-point favorites against Jaden Daniels, the upstart rookie quarterback for the Commanders, who has taken the league by storm. 6-point favorites for the Eagles, and right now Kansas City is a 1.5-point favorite at home against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. These matchups are going to be fun.
Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, everybody I think expects that Buffalo and Kansas City is going to be.
It's so funny. Like every year, they're like, "Oh my God, it's the Bills and Chiefs again."
Yeah.
It doesn't even feel like. I mean, like they do play quite often in the postseason, but it doesn't feel like it's the AFC Championship every time.
No.
I think the last time it was like 2020, like 2021, like when, in the middle of COVID, like. It was the half-empty Arrowhead, and
I
Stephon
just remember
Diggs
that
was
one
there,
where they
like,
were both going back and forth. Yeah, just crazy scoring
Yeah.
in the last 30 seconds of the game.
Yeah,
You know,
the Chiefs got the ball with like 14 seconds left and went down to the field.
it was
and
just
kicked
like
the field goal.
every time they touched it, somebody's going 75 yards and they score in like 30 seconds, and it's like, oh my God, can this guy pull it off and score? And there's only 1:12 left. Can they pull it off and score? Oh, they scored. Okay, there's 30 seconds left. Can this team pull it off and score? Oh, they did it. Oh my God. it was a lot of fun, and I think we all kind of expect that. On the other side, you think the Commanders keep this game make this game interesting? I mean, Jaden Daniels, I keep telling myself this. every single
game
Washington game is down to the wire. They continue to have close scores.
Yeah, I think they can keep it up. The last time they faced off against the Eagles, 36-33. Fun game there was for the Commanders, and they were able to pull off the victory. They lost 26-18 on the road in Philadelphia. Honestly, like I think they can stay in the game. I think they can make it a good one. I think that he's really impressed me. Jaden Daniels has in the postseason. Like I didn't expect this. Like he's a rookie quarterback, and he hasn't
just
really
been so poised,
very poised. Able to win against the Buccaneers, and I don't think anyone thought that the Lions would lose at least by 14 points. Honestly, here's my take, and I don't know if this is like a controversial take or not, but like, was the NFC North overrated? Like, because the Packers got blown out.
Yeah.
Lions, their first game, they lose by 14. And the Vikings, they got kind of dominated by the Rams. Like, was the NFC North overrated? That's the question that I have, because based on the results in the postseason,
you would
they
say
don't
yes.
look good. They don't look good.
I can't believe
did
it.
Did they all have those records because they were playing each other? Like, I don't know what it was, but like,
I don't either. I mean, you got good coaches in all three of those places. You've got talented guys on all, like, it's just such a head scratcher what happened with the NFC North. I really don't get it. I'm looking at this Commanders schedule. They win by 2 touchdowns against Detroit. So that one, not very close, but a huge upset that surprised everybody. So very interesting. But before that, you mentioned beating Tampa Bay by 3. They win against Dallas by 4. They win in overtime by 6 against Atlanta. They win by 3 against Philadelphia. They win by 1 against New Orleans. Like, this team is just an absolute, they're the cardiac Commanders. Well, and I think what should be noted is, a lot of the attention goes to Jaden Daniels, and he's been fantastic, but their defense played really well against Detroit. And I think if I'm Philadelphia, like, I've been seeing a lot of people, they're riding high on Philadelphia right now. I'm a believer.
I'm a believer too. The tough part though is that, like, I'm also a believer in Saquon Barkley and what Saquon Barkley has done for the Eagles this season. And he held himself out. Kind of got held out of the last game of the year. He wasn't able to break Eric Dickerson's record for most rushing yards in a season, and he's just taken it to another notch in the postseason. The Eagles have just ran the ball exceptionally well with Saquon. Last game was kind of fun. I did not know it was going to be a snow game. I'm going to be honest.
What?
I was like, oh, it'll be like a nice game. I bet the over. I bet like passing yards. And after the first quarter, I was feeling pretty good. And then I didn't realize that it was going to be an absolute blizzard for the second half. But Saquon, despite the snow.
Didn't we talk about the weather last week?
We did, but I knew that it was going to be cold, not that it was going to be a friggin' blizzard for the second half of the game.
I just loved how the announcers were like, they had the radar up. And
yeah, they were like, it's coming.
All right, if you're going to take your chances, if you're going to take your shots downfield, now's the time to do it because it's going to be a blizzard in 15 minutes. You better do it now. If you're going to take a shot downfield to A.J. Brown, here's your chance to get it done because it's coming. We're 5 minutes away from the Snowmageddon. Get ready.
Dude, I love that.
Temperatures are still going to be a bit chilly, but weather's going to be a little bit nicer this weekend for both these games, by the way.
Okay.
Philadelphia.
I definitely need to look at the weather before I...
It's supposed to be kind of overcast and 40 in Philly for the game. And then
so that's like shorts weather.
Yeah, and then you got 32 degrees, but not looking like you're going to get precipitation in Kansas City for the Buffalo and KC game there. So, I mean, weather not going to be much of a... You mentioned Saquon. Jahmyr Gibbs put up 105 yards against Washington last week.
Saquon had 205 yards last week.
And they still won by 14. The Lions had 201 yards rushing last week. They put up 521 yards of offense. Bend don't break.
That's certainly. I mean,
but the thing is,
the thing with the Commanders though is that they're going to score some points.
Yeah, you got to keep up with them.
You have to keep up with them because they're going to score some points. Because Cliff Kingsbury's done a really good job directing the offense. Again, what could have been for the Raiders, man? What could have been this season? The Raiders get Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury. Antonio Pierce is still there. What could have been? That's besides the point. Good for them. The Commanders, great hire. And I think that Jaden Daniels is honestly an X factor. You know, if he's able to limit the turnovers, because he hasn't turned the ball over in the postseason, he's going to put his team in position to win the game. I think it's going to be a slugfest back and forth, a couple of haymakers from both sides. I wouldn't be surprised if Jaden Daniels ripped off a 35-yard run for a touchdown or something like that. Saquon has a 70-yard run. I think this is going to be a game with a lot of points. The last time they played, again, it was 36-33, and I think it's probably going to be a similar type of shootout.
I love the fact that, it is a rematch, and so Jaden Daniels,
this is the third time they're playing.
And so he's seen it. He knows it. He's won against it. I don't think there's any reason that the Commanders go in. I said the first line on the AP story about this game, Jaden Daniels, or this was about last week's game against Detroit. Jaden Daniels and the nothing to lose Washington Commanders. I mean, at this point, they are playing with house money.
Yep.
They can go in, don't have to be worried. Nobody expected you to be here. If you lose and flame out, that's what everybody expected. You can just say we set the foundation for next year.
I really hate that, saying nothing to lose. It's they have the national or the NFC Championship game to lose.
Yeah,
come on.
That
is something on the line.
But when nobody expected you to be there. It's hey, if we don't do it, then I guess we just met expectations, and nobody expected this anyways. So
I think they've exceeded expectations at this point.
Obviously I'm going to be looking forward to Buffalo and Kansas City, but that Commanders team has been a lot of fun to watch, and I've really gotten on board with them. I think that's a lot of fun to watch. Should be a couple of great games. Again, coverage will be here on the radio if you can't make it in front of the TV. 11 o'clock on Sunday, you can tune in for that Commanders and Eagles game, and then stay tuned after that. We'll go right to the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs with coverage starting at about 3:30, depending on how long Game 1 goes in that one. Should be a lot of fun. We got to cook up some bets for the weekend, I'm sure. Not right now, but we'll try to cook up some fun for this weekend. It has been I had a great last weekend. It's been a brutal week.
Oh, man.
I had my hockey and NBA stuff. None of it is hitting. So
my hockey hit. That's all that matters. I'm sorry about Ovi. We talked about Ovi trying to get one in Edmonton. That did not hit. Should have been, honestly, thinking about it afterwards, I forgot that McDavid was suspended for 3 games, and I was like, oh, should have hammered Draisaitl, and sure enough, he scored first. Sorry, that's enough. That's enough puck on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate show.
That's what I get for listening to you, man. Steer me wrong once again. So NFL coverage is going to be fun. The NFL Pro Bowl games are coming up next weekend. Not this week, but a week from this Sunday, noon to 3, the Pro Bowl games will be coverage. It's a lot of interviews and stuff like that because the Pro Bowl is no longer...
I didn't even realize the Pro Bowl was this weekend.
Not this weekend, but the weekend after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better about my state because I was like, whoa, how did I miss that?
No, yeah, you've got time. We've got the conference championship games this weekend and then the Pro Bowl next weekend, and then Super Bowl 59 that'll be here on February 9th. But the Pro Bowl games are coming up. Like I said, the coverage is a lot of like talking to players and interviews, and then a couple updates on some of the stuff that's going on. But it's not a game anymore. It's games. They're playing all sorts of other things, and then they have flag football. It is one of many all-star formats that have changed as the leagues are trying to figure out what the heck to do with all-star games. We will talk about that because the NBA has a new format that they're going to be testing out here soon as well. And it definitely had me thinking, what's the right factor when it comes to all-star games? We'll talk about that as we wrap things up here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show here on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM.
Coastal is bringing you store-wide and site-wide savings for 24 hours.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, with just what the country needs.
Shop the one-day sale on January 25th to save 20% off all apparel, footwear, and clothing accessories. Then take 10% off everything else in-store and online. Grab heaters, generators, and tools from top brands like DeWalt. Replenish pet food, beds, collars, and pet toys. Get the best prices on feed and check out our sporting goods for everything from safes to optics, all for 10% off. Plus, you can save an additional 50% off clearance clothing, footwear, and clothing accessories at Coastal during the 24-hour sale.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, with just what the country needs.
Shop in-store or online this Saturday to save on all your essentials.
Hi, it's Kyle Bailey inviting you to join me September 24th as we discover lovely Tuscany with Colette. We'll unpack for a leisurely 7-night, 1-hotel stay in Montecatini Terma, the famous resort and spa. Enjoy fabulous local wines and the region's famous cuisine. Discover sprawling vineyards, medieval hill towns, and explore the cultural treasures of Florence. Explore the charming towns of Lucca, Pisa, and the Italian countryside. We'll even enjoy a chef-led Tuscan cooking class and learn how the famous Pecorino cheese is made at a local farm. This and so much more. Colette covers the details: flights, hotels, meals, and local experiences. Your only job is to have the time of your life. Don't miss out. To learn more, join us at our offices on February 4th at 6 p.m., 345 Northeast Winchester Street. Visit 541radio.com for details or call Flyway Travel at 672-5701.
A stove from Fisher's Hearth & Home will keep you toasty warm during the cold season. A new addition from Saving Grace Humane Society would love to be kept warm too. Hi, I'm Barbara from Fisher's Hearth & Home, and we are proud to sponsor the Saving Grace Pet of the Week.
Hi everyone, this is Sin from Saving Grace Humane Society, and I'd like to introduce you to our featured pet, Kitty Girl. This 7-year-old blonde bombshell is the ultimate lounging companion, always on the hunt for a perfect sunbeam to call her throne. With her stunning looks and gentle personality, Kitty Girl is ready to turn your house into her forever kingdom. If you're looking for a laid-back queen to brighten your household, come meet Kitty Girl today.
Whether it's a wood, pellet, gas, or electric stove, indoor or out, Fisher's Hearth & Home has the right stove for you. Call our family at 541-672-0306. For a cozy companion to be by your side and enjoy the fire with you, visit Saving Grace Humane Society in Roseburg or go to savinggracehumanesociety.org.
From the Score Sports Closet, this is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
Big thanks again to BTB Moving, sponsoring the program. Find them on Facebook at BTB Moving if you've got a move coming up in your future. The end of that last commercial sounded like you could hear Greg's chair squeaking in the production studio at the end of the recording. Because I thought it was your chair, and then I realized our mics aren't on, so I shouldn't have been able to hear that in my headphones. So I might need to point that out to him. I think his chair squeaking came in there at the very end of that commercial.
That's so funny.
I mean, I've heard that one before plenty of times here recently, and I don't think I've ever heard that before.
I haven't noticed that.
Me neither.
I was just whistling the...
Yeah, you were whistling the other one.
Yeah.
That definitely... Speaking of things that we haven't noticed, apparently the NBA All-Star festivities have a completely different format this year.
Yeah.
If you didn't catch that.
What's the format? Because you've teased this, and I still don't know.
So I guess I found an article on NBA.com that says that they must have made this decision in December. I found out about it yesterday. They named the NBA starters yesterday for the All-Star festivities, and in the report I heard about that, they were like, and there's a new format. I was like, there's a new format this year. NBA changing this year. There's going to be not one All-Star game. There's going to be a mini tournament, so it'll be 3 games total, and there's going to be 4 teams. So, which, I mean...
is this like the NHL, like what the NHL does?
I have no idea what the NHL does.
Okay.
But let me... they've got 4 teams, so they've named the NBA Eastern and Western Conference starters. The reserves will get announced here coming up in a little bit as well. And then that'll be your pool of players. And then the broadcasters from NBA's Inside the NBA on TNT, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny the Jet Smith, they will draft teams out of that group of players.
Oh.
So there'll be 3 teams for those guys. And then the winner of the Rising Star Challenge, which is first and second year players, the winner of that matchup moves on and will be the 4th team in the mini tournament. And they'll play a semifinal game, and then the 2 winners move on to the championship game. And the winner of the championship game, the players on that winner's team, get $125,000 each, which... I guess maybe if it's the Rising Stars Challenge team that wins it all, that means something to them. Everybody else, these are all-stars. These guys are making bucket loads of money. $125,000, is that enough to make that interesting for them? I don't really feel like it is. But so it's, that's them. And the games are first to 40 points.
Oh.
So
see, I like that.
This is much more interesting than what they've been doing with the NBA All-Star Game.
You know what I like is I like the format in what is that league? The summer league with like the former college basketball players. Is it just the basketball league or?
Okay, there is that. That's more of a spring league, but
the basketball tournament.
It's is it 3-on-3 though?
No, it's not. But what they do is I'm blanking on something like Mayhem or something like that. What it is that like. Once it gets to 4 minutes on the clock.
Oh yeah, they have the.
You know what
I'm
talking about.
As soon as
right?
I hear it, I would know it. But it's the something ending or whatever. The
Elam ending.
Yeah,
yes,
something like that.
It's the Elam ending.
Yeah,
and I love that.
And it's once you get to
4 minutes in the clock in the fourth quarter, then it's whoever is leading. It's 8 points past that. Whoever gets that number first wins.
Yeah.
And so you're never out of it. You don't have to You can use as much clock as you want. There is no clock. You just have to get to that point.
Yeah.
So, you could be down 25 points and come back and win the game.
Yeah.
That's the exciting part. So, I like that. I like the first to 40 rule. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The NHL does theirs a little bit different. So, they do 4 teams. It's 3-on-3 in the NHL, but they do it by...
As far as I know, the NBA is going to to still be 5-on-5 with these games,
So, they do 3-on-3 for the NHL. But they do it by division, like the Pacific Division, the Atlantic Division, the Metropolitan Division, etc.
Interesting.
So that's how they do it. They do it based on the division. So when you said 4 teams, that's where I would
that
was where my mind went.
That's not a
because
horrible idea.
The NBA, I don't even think divisions even mean anything anymore.
Yeah, your conferences and whatnot.
It's just conferences for the playoffs. It's not like a division.
Yeah, your division, the Northwest and the Pacific, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I don't even really know anymore. It's changed it from time to time since I was a kid and whatnot, but
because now it's just whoever 1 through 8 in the conference. But a division, there is the Atlantic Division, there's the Central Division, the Southeast Division. The Pacific, the Northwest.
There's 6 total, so you'd
The
have a hard time breaking it up. But.
I find this so funny looking at the Northwest Division.
It's got Oklahoma City.
I know, it literally, Portland's the only team in the Northwest.
Yeah.
It's Utah, it's Minnesota, it's Denver, and Oklahoma City.
Sports leagues are so messed up when it comes to that. But that caught my attention because I was like, whoa, they made changes to that. And then, of course, the Pro Bowl is
used
coming
to be
up.
like that. So I went to one Pro Bowl in my life, not in Hawaii, but the one that they did in Arizona. And at that point, it was Michael Irvin versus Chris Carter, and they got to draft the teams. They just had if you were named in the AFC or NFC, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
You got drafted. You were either Team Carter or you were Team Irvin.
Yeah,
and you got to root for that.
And
team.
they've done that in the NBA. They had I can't remember who it was, the guys, but they had 2 guys. Shaq and Barkley or whatever it was, and they got to draft the teams, and then it was they were actually playing. I think it was LeBron and Kevin Durant got to draft the players.
Yeah, but that's like
that's
like players. But to me, I like the way that the NFL did it because, for one, Michael Irvin's a big trash talker, and he wanted to win that game, and so did Chris Carter because he didn't win the Super Bowls that Michael Irvin won, and so he wanted to get back at him. And I remember they did that for a few years. I think Deion Sanders had a game where he was the coach. It was Team Sanders, and I forget who the other coach was at that point. But when he did it, you could just tell the guys played a little bit harder. I remember watching that Pro Bowl and Joe Hayden just absolutely
let me ask you
up.
Here as we run out of time. Do you even care about? I mean, you didn't even know. You thought the Pro Bowl could have been this weekend when I brought up the Pro Bowl. So
I don't care about the Pro Bowl now because they've ruined it. It's now flag football, isn't it?
It's flag football, and then it's a bunch of other I really enjoy the competition stuff, like the passing competitions or some of the other kind of skills stuff. That stuff I find fun. Slam dunk has gotten a little outdated. It's just it's so it takes forever.
I love the skills comp. I think that's fun.
Yeah,
but,
I like the 3-point shooting contest. I mean, it's not the most exciting, but it's fun to watch, and I think they've added some different angles.
I think the NBA is struggling because they're All-Star Saturday is literally just 3 events, and it's 3.5, 4 hours of these.
It just
3
takes
events.
forever.
It takes forever. It's just not as fun. The NHL does it great because they have 11 events, 12 events, and it's a lot of fun, and you can tell the guys really care about participating, whereas it feels like with the NBA and NFL, people don't really care anymore. I don't know why. And the other thing about me and the NFL and the Pro Bowl, it's dude, 2 years ago, Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowler. The amount of times that guys just opt out and just you get stuck with
you just get random
it's
guys.
Not even Pro Bowlers. It's literally just who wants a free vacation to wherever they're going to have the Pro Bowl this year? Who wants to go to Orlando?
It's held at the end of the season, but also before the championship. So then even the best players, you got your 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl. Those players aren't competing because they got the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And football you can't do it in the middle of the season like every other league does. You don't really want to wait till the end of the season because then everybody's trying to heal up. Football really has a hard time with trying to figure that out. Basketball is just the players don't seem to care anymore. And baseball is just kind of the same. Hockey seems like it does have kind of the setting to be the best of them. But got to start wrapping it up.
I like what the hockey did this year. 4 nations face off instead. Great. Wouldn't you rather have that? When you with the amount of foreign players in the NBA right now, wouldn't you rather have a international tournament? Maybe the NBA is just dominated by U.S. players and it wouldn't matter, but I like it.
I don't think he understands what the music's supposed to mean, but yes, I'm happy with this tournament for the NBA. Seems to be a good idea. So we'll see how it works out. That'll be coming up here in a little bit. We will talk to you next week. This has been the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving here on The Score. Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your